A lonely text from a scared mum-to-be reaches the last person she expected, a reclusive billionaire haunted by his own loss. One message, one connection, one chance to rewrite everything. Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today. The rain pounded against the windows of Metro General Hospital as Zariah Lane rushed down the hallway, her white sneakers squeaking against the freshly mopped floor. Another double shift, another night of chaos in the ER, but that was exactly how she liked it, too busy to think about her empty apartment or the stack of bills waiting on her kitchen counter. "Zariah, we need you in trauma too," called out Nancy, the head nurse who had taken Zariah under her wing 5 years ago when she was fresh out of nursing school. "On my way," Zariah called back, quickly tying her dark curly hair into a messy bun. She grabbed a patient chart from the nurse's station and scanned it while walking. Multiple lacerations, possible concussion. Car accident on the highway. Just another Tuesday night. By midnight, the emergency room was overflowing. 3 car accidents from the stormy weather, an elderly man with chest pains, and a child with a high fever had all arrived within hours of each other. Zariah moved between rooms with practiced efficiency, her compassion never wavering despite her exhaustion. "Lane," Dr. Morris called out. "We've got another one coming in. Motorcycle versus guardrail. ETA 2 minutes. Zariah nodded, quickly finishing the IV she was setting up. "What's the status?" "Conscious but disoriented. Male, early 30s. Possible broken ribs, definite concussion." The ambulance doors burst open, and the paramedics wheeled in a stretcher. On it lay a man in torn, expensive-looking clothes. His face was partially obscured by a neck brace, but Zariah could see he was handsome. Chiseled jaw, dark hair matted with rain and blood. "Stats?" she asked, immediately checking his pupils with her penlight. "BP 140/90, pulse 95, the paramedic reported. "No ID on him, but..." A frantic woman in a tailored suit pushed her way through the doors, her heels clicking rapidly against the floor. "Where is he? Is he okay?" She spotted the stretcher and gasped. "Oh my God, Beckett. Ma'am, you need to..." "Wait outside," Zariah said firmly, not looking up from her assessment. The woman straightened her jacket. "Do you know who this is? That's Beckett Cross." A nurse beside Zariah whispered, "The Beckett Cross? The CEO of Crosstech?" The assistant nodded importantly. "Yes, and he needs immediate attention. The best care you have." Zariah finally looked up, her expression unchanged. "Take a number. We've got 3 car crashes ahead of him." The assistant's mouth fell open. "But everyone gets treated according to the severity of their injuries, not the size of their bank account," Zariah said, her voice leaving no room for argument. "Now please, wait in the family area. We'll update you when we can." From the Sioux. Stretcher. Through his pain and confusion, Beckett Cross heard every word. His eyes, clouded with pain, focused briefly on the nurse's name tag. Zariah Lane, RN. And despite everything, a small smile touched his lips. 3 hours later, Zariah entered room 304 to check on her latest patient. Beckett Cross had been given pain medication, his ribs taped, and was now resting with a mild concussion. The hospital administrator had already called twice, panicking about having America's most eligible CEO as a patient. "How are we feeling, Mr. Cross?" Zariah asked professionally. Checking his IV, Beckett opened his eyes slowly. Without the blood and grime from the accident, his face was even more striking. Strong features softened by surprisingly gentle eyes. "Like I lost an argument with the road," he said, his voice rough. "And please call me Beckett or Beck." "Your vitals are looking better, Mr. Cross," she continued, ignoring his request. "But you've got 3 broken ribs and a concussion, so you'll be our guest for at least 48 hours. He studied her face as she made notes on his chart. "You're the one who wouldn't let me skip the line." "That's right. Even though I'm a patient who needs medical care," she finished for him, "just like everyone else who comes through those doors." For a moment, he just looked at her. Then, "Thank you." Zariah's pen paused on the chart. "For what?" "For treating me like a person, not a headline." Something in his tone made her really look at him for the first time. Behind the handsome face that probably graced magazine covers was something unexpected, vulnerability, and a loneliness she recognized all too well. "It's my job, Mr. Cross," she said, her voice a little softer. "Try to get some rest." As she turned to leave, he called after her, "It's Beck, please." Zariah paused at the door. "Good night, Mr. Cross." The next morning, Zariah returned to find Beckett attempting to sit up, his face twisted in pain. "What do you think you're doing?" she asked, quickly moving to his side. "I have meetings, conference calls. I need my phone." "What you need is rest." She gently but firmly helped him back against the pillows. "Your assistant dropped off your things, but Dr. Morris left strict instructions. No work for 24 hours. Beckett frowned. "Do you know how many people depend on me? How many decisions need my approval every day? Do you know how many more broken ribs you'll have if you don't heal properly?" she countered, checking his bandages. "The world will keep spinning if you take 2 days off, Mr. Cross." Instead of the anger she expected, Beckett laughed, then immediately winced from the pain in his ribs. "You really don't care who I am, do you?" "I care that you're my patient," Zariah said simply. She handed him a small paper cup with pain medication. "And right now my patient needs to rest." Something shifted in Beckett's expression. "You're different." "I'm busy," she corrected him. "Now, if there's nothing else you need—" "Actually," he said, "I could use some company, just for a few minutes." When she hesitated, he added, "Doctor's orders include mental rest too, right? And nothing relaxes the mind like conversation." Zariah checked her watch. She had 10 minutes before she needed to check on her next patient. 5 minutes, she conceded. "Tell me something about yourself," Beckett said. "Something not on your name tag," Zariah raised an eyebrow. "I'm not much for small talk, Mr. Cross." "It's Beck," he insisted again, "and it's not small talk if you actually care about the answer." She studied him for a moment, then said, "I have 3 younger siblings. They're the reason I work double shifts." Beckett's interest was genuine. "You support them?" "My mom died when I was 22. Dad wasn't in the picture. So yes, I help with college tuition, rent." She stopped herself, surprised at how easily the words had come out. "That was more than you asked for." "No," he said quietly. "It was exactly what I asked for. Something real about Zariah Lane." The way he said her name made her uncomfortable, not in a bad way, but in a way that felt too personal, too warm. "Your 5 minutes are up, Mr. Cross," she said, moving toward the door. "Beck," he called after her. This time, she allowed herself a small smile. "Get some rest, Mr. Cross." Over the next few days, Beckett became known among the nursing staff as Zariah's VIP. Not because she gave him special treatment, quite the opposite. She was the only one who didn't fawn over him, or sneak photos when he wasn't looking. "He's requesting you again," Nancy said with a knowing smile on the 3rd day. "3rd time today." Zariah rolled her eyes. "He's just used to getting his way. Or maybe he likes the only person in this hospital who doesn't treat him like royalty." "I'm not here to boost his ego," Zariah said, taking his chart. "I'm here to make sure he doesn't puncture a lung with those ribs." But the truth was, she had begun looking forward to their interactions. Beckett Cross was not what she expected. He asked about her siblings, remembered their names, and seemed genuinely interested in her life. He never mentioned his wealth or status. When she checked on him during night shifts, she sometimes found him staring out the window, a loneliness in his expression that made him seem like any other person, not a billionaire CEO. On the 4th day, Zariah entered room 304 to find Beckett sitting up in bed, looking at his phone. "Your color's better today," she observed, checking his IV. "I feel better," he said, setting down his phone. "Good enough to leave, I think." Zariah checked his chart. "Dr. Morris wants to keep you 1 more night for observation." "I've got a company to run," he argued. "You may run the world, Mr. Cross, but you don't run this floor," she said firmly. "1 more night." Instead of arguing, he changed tactics. "Have dinner with me." The request caught her off guard. "Excuse me?" "Hospital food is terrible. I convinced the staff to let me order in. There's enough for 2. He gestured to a paper bag on the side table that smelled deliciously of garlic and spices. "Unless you're too busy." She should have said no, it was unprofessional, but she'd skipped lunch and the smell of real food made her stomach growl audibly. Beckett grinned. I'll take that as a yes. 15 minutes later, they were sharing containers of pasta and salad. Zariah had intended to eat quickly and leave, but somehow the conversation kept flowing. So why nursing? Beckett asked. My mom was sick for a long time before she died, Zariah answered, surprising herself with her honesty. The nurses were the ones who made the difference, not just medically but emotionally, for all of us. They were lucky to have you. Was lucky to have her, Zariah corrected, then quickly changed the subject. What about you? Always wanted to run a tech empire? A shadow crossed his face. It was the family business, not much choice involved. There's always a choice, is there? He looked at her intently. You chose nursing because you wanted to help. People like the nurses who helped your mother. I chose cross-tech because it was expected. We both did what we thought was right. Not the same thing, Zariah argued. No, he agreed softly. It's not. After a pause, he added, but I'm trying to make it mine now. Do things differently than my father did. There was something in his voice, a determination mixed with old pain, that made Zariah believe him. The next day, Beckett was scheduled for discharge. Zariah brought his paperwork in the morning, expecting to find him eager to leave. Instead, he seemed almost reluctant. Everything okay, Mr. Cross? Beck, he corrected automatically, then smiled. Just thinking about how getting hit by a guardrail might be the best thing that's happened to me in a long time. Zariah felt her cheeks warm. Pain medication can cause unusual thoughts. I'll note that in your chart. He laughed. It's not the medication, it's the company. Before she could respond, his phone rang. He checked the screen and his expression changed, the warm, open man disappearing behind what she imagined was his CEO mask. I need to take this, he said. Zariah nodded, placing his discharge papers on the bed. Just sign these when you're done. Your assistant is handling the rest. She turned to leave, telling herself it was better this way. Whatever connection she thought they'd formed over the past few days was just a temporary distraction for a man used to getting what he wanted. Zariah, he called after her. The use of her first name made her pause. Will you come back before I leave? She should have said no. Instead, she found herself nodding. But when she returned an hour later, room 304 was empty. The bed was stripped, the discharge papers gone. Through the window, she could see a sleek black car pulling away from the hospital entrance. So much for goodbyes, she thought, ignoring the unexpected sting of disappointment. That evening, as Zariah was preparing to finally go home after her shift, Nancy called her to the front desk. Delivery for you, she said with a mysterious smile. A small box sat on the counter wrapped in simple brown paper. Zariah opened it cautiously to find a silver pen inside, elegant but not flashy, with her name engraved on it. A note was tucked beside it. For all those charts you fill out with such care, thank you for seeing me, not my name. Beck, Zariah stared at the note, a mix of emotions washing over her. He'd been paying attention. He'd noticed she always struggled with the hospital's cheap pens. It was a thoughtful gift, not an extravagant one. But still, she tucked the pen into her pocket without using it. Beckett Cross had gone back to his world, and she to hers. That was how it should be. She had no idea that their worlds were about to collide again, in ways neither of them could have imagined. 2 weeks passed without any further contact from Beckett Cross. Zariah told herself it was for the best. Men like him didn't belong in her world of double shifts, discount groceries, and Sunday phone calls with her siblings. Earth to Zariah. Nancy waved a hand in front of her face one morning as they restocked supplies. That's the third time you've checked the schedule for room 304. He's not coming back, honey. Zariah felt her cheeks warm. I'm just making sure everything's covered for today. Uh-huh, Nancy said, not buying it for a second. Well, when you're done not thinking about your billionaire, there's a patient in room 210 who needs his dressing changed. He's not my billionaire, Zariah muttered, but she couldn't deny that Beckett Cross had gotten under her skin in a way no man had in years. That afternoon, Zariah's youngest sister, Maya, called during her break. How's college life? Zariah asked, sipping her lukewarm coffee in the staff room. Expensive, Maya sighed. That's actually why I'm calling. My laptop died, And I need a new one for my design projects. I hate to ask, but how much? Zoraya cut in, already mentally calculating which bill she could delay paying. About 800 for the one I need. I can pick up extra hours at the coffee shop, but it won't be enough by midterms. I'll figure it out, Zoraya promised. Don't worry. After hanging up, she leaned her head against the wall. Between Maya's laptop, Jaden's tuition payment, and Zoe's rent assistance, this month was going to be tight. She'd have to take on extra shifts, maybe even look for weekend work at the local clinic. As she headed back to the floor, the hospital administrator, Dr. Patel, approached her with an unusually bright smile. Nurse Lane, just the person I wanted to see. Is everything okay? Zoraya asked warily. More than okay. We've received an anonymous donation to upgrade the entire East Wing nursing station. New computers, a proper break room, even ergonomic chairs. Dr. Patel beamed. And the donor specifically requested that you be part of the planning committee. Zoraya frowned. Anonymous, but they asked for me by name? Strange, isn't it? Dr. Patel said, though her expression suggested she had her suspicions. The donation came through a foundation, but I have my theories. She gave Zoraya a meaningful look. We haven't had many billionaires as patients recently. Zoraya's heart skipped a beat, but she kept her expression neutral. I'm sure it's just a coincidence, but she knew it wasn't. Somehow Beckett had noticed the outdated equipment at the nursing station, the uncomfortable chairs that left her back aching after 12-hour shifts, just like he'd noticed her struggle with the hospital's cheap pens. That evening, as Zoraya was leaving the hospital, she found a sleek black car waiting by the entrance. The driver's window rolled down to reveal a professional-looking woman with short blonde hair. Zoraya Lane? She asked. Zoraya stopped, immediately on guard. Who's asking? My name is Diane Foster. I'm Mr. Cross's personal assistant. She stepped out of the car. He'd like to speak with you, if you have a moment. Zoraya crossed her arms. He could have called the hospital. He wanted to be more discreet, Diane explained. May I? She gestured to her phone. After a moment's hesitation, Zoraya nodded. Diane dialed, then handed her the phone. Hello? Zoraya said cautiously. Zoraya. Beckett's voice was warm, instantly familiar. Thank you for taking my call. Your assistant didn't give me much choice, she replied, though there was no real annoyance in her tone. He chuckled. Diane can be persuasive. How have you been? Busy, working, the usual. She paused. Was there something you needed, Mr. Cross? Beck, he corrected automatically. And yes, actually, I was hoping you might join me for dinner tomorrow night. The invitation was so unexpected that Zoraya found herself momentarily speechless. I know it's short notice, he continued, but I'm leaving for Tokyo on Friday, and I'd really like to see you before I go. 1,000 reasons to say no raced through her mind. This was crazy. They were from different worlds. He was probably just bored, looking for a distraction. Why? She asked simply. There was a pause. Because in the 5 days I spent in that hospital bed, you were the only person who made me feel like myself. Not the CEO, not the cross-air, just Beck. His honesty disarmed her. I don't know. Just dinner, he promised. I'll have Diane pick you up at 7. If you decide not to come, I'll understand. After hanging up, Zoraya handed the phone back to Diane, who gave her a business card. My number's on there. Text me your address if you decide to accept. Zoraya walked to her car in a daze, the card burning a hole in her pocket. That night, she called her sister Zoe, the only sibling, close to her in age and the one person she trusted for advice. He asked you out? Zoe squealed after Zoraya explained the situation. Beckett Cross, the Beckett Cross? Keep your voice down, Zoraya said, though she was alone in her apartment. It's not a big deal. Not a big deal? Z, the man is worth billions. His face is on the cover of Business Weekly at least once a month. I don't care about his money, Zoraya said firmly. That's exactly why he likes you, Zoe pointed out. Do you know how rare it must be for someone like him to meet a person who doesn't want something? Zoraya sighed, looking at the silver pen on her coffee table, the one gift from him she'd allowed herself to keep. It's one dinner. It doesn't mean anything. But you're going, right? Zoe pressed. After a long pause, Zariah replied, "I haven't decided yet." But even as she said it, she knew she was going to text Diane her address. The following evening, Zariah stood in front of her closet, feeling ridiculous. She didn't date. She especially didn't date men who probably had private jets and vacation, homes in places she couldn't pronounce. Yet here she was, trying to find something to wear to dinner with Beckett Cross. She finally settled on a simple navy blue dress, the one she'd worn to Maya's high school graduation last year. It was the nicest thing she owned, which wasn't saying much. She applied a light touch of makeup and her trusty lip balm, then slipped on her only pair of heels. At exactly 7 o'clock, her phone buzzed with a text from Diane. "Outside whenever you're ready." Zariah took a deep breath, grabbed her purse, and headed downstairs. The car was the same sleek black vehicle from yesterday, but this time when the door opened, Beckett himself stepped out. He looked even more handsome than she remembered, dressed in a simple but clearly expensive dark suit, his hair perfectly styled. The bruises from his accident had faded, and he moved with only a slight stiffness that hinted at his healing ribs. "You buy?" "Came," he said, his smile genuine and a little relieved. "I was curious," she admitted. "About the restaurant?" he teased. "About why a billionaire CEO can't find a dinner date without sending his assistant to stalk hospital employees." Beckett laughed. "I deserved that." He opened the car door for her. "But I promise the food will be worth your skepticism." To Zariah's surprise, the restaurant wasn't the fancy, exclusive place she'd expected. Instead, Diane drove them to a small Italian bistro in a quiet neighborhood. Elegant, but not extravagant. "I hope this is okay," Beckett said, as they were seated at a corner table. "I thought you might be more comfortable somewhere less showy." The fact that he'd considered her feelings touched Zariah more than she wanted to admit. "It's perfect," she said honestly. Over plates of pasta and glasses of wine, conversation flowed more easily than Zariah had anticipated. Beckett asked about her siblings, remembering details from their hospital talks. He told her about growing up as the heir to Crosstech, about the pressure and expectations. "My father built the company from nothing," he explained. "Everything I do is measured against his legacy." "That sounds lonely," Zariah observed. Beckett looked surprised, then thoughtful. "It is," he admitted. "I'm surrounded by people all day, but no one really sees me. Except the nurse who wouldn't let you skip the ER line," she said with a small smile. "Except her," he agreed, his eyes warm. "Though she still won't call me Beck. Maybe she likes maintaining some professional distance." Zariah replied, "Is that what this is? Professional distance?" The question hung between them, loaded with meaning. Before Zariah could answer, a flash went off near the window. Beckett's expression immediately changed. He signaled to someone, a security guard. Zariah hadn't noticed before, who moved quickly toward the source of the flash. "I'm sorry about that," Beckett said, his jaw tight. "I thought we'd be left alone here." "Was that Paparazzi?" he confirmed. "They follow me sometimes. I should have been more careful." The moment was broken. Zariah suddenly felt out of place, reminded of exactly who she was having dinner with. Not just Beck, the man with the gentle eyes and thoughtful gifts, but Beckett Cross, the public figure whose every move was documented. "Maybe this was a mistake," she said quietly. "Zariah, I should go." She stood up, grabbing her purse. "Thank you for dinner, but I think we both know this isn't going to work." Beckett rose too, reaching for her hand. "Please don't leave, not like this." The sincerity in his eyes almost made her stay, but then she noticed other diners watching them, phones discreetly pointed in their direction. This was his life. Constant. Scrutiny, no privacy. It wasn't a world she belonged in. "Goodbye, Mr. Cross," she said firmly, then walked out of the restaurant. Outside, she hailed a cab, ignoring Diane's attempt to approach her. As the taxi pulled away, she saw Beckett standing on the sidewalk, watching her go with an expression that made her heart ache. The next morning, Zariah arrived at the hospital exhausted after a nearly sleepless night. She'd replayed the dinner over and over in her mind, wondering if she'd overreacted. But when she saw the newspaper in the break room, she knew she'd made the right decision. There on the front page of the tabloid section was a photo of her and Beckett at the restaurant, his hand reaching for hers across the table. The headline, Kirsty Cross's mystery woman. Who is the nurse who captured the billionaire's heart? Oh, honey, Nancy said sympathetically when she saw Zariah staring at the paper. Is that why you look like you haven't slept? It wasn't like that, Zariah said, her voice tight. It was just dinner. Well, according to this, you're his refreshing change from the socialites he usually dates. Nancy read from the article. They're calling you his down-to-earth angel of mercy. Zariah groaned. This is exactly what I was afraid of. Throughout the day, she noticed whispers and stares from other staff members. Even some patients mentioned the article. By afternoon, Dr. Patel called her into the office. I want you to know that your personal life is your business, she began, but when it affects the hospital... It was one dinner, Zariah interrupted. And it won't happen again. Dr. Patel studied her for a moment. For what it's worth, I think Mr. Cross's donation was as much about you as it was about the hospital. That kind of attention isn't necessarily a bad thing. But it was, Zariah thought, as she left the office. The last thing she needed was to become a tabloid curiosity, especially when her siblings might see the stories. They had enough to deal with without worrying about their big sister's love life becoming public fodder. That evening, as she was leaving the hospital, she found Diane waiting for her again. He's not here, Diane said before Zariah could walk away. He left for Tokyo this morning, but he asked me to give you this. She handed Zariah a sealed envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter. Zariah, I'm sorry about last night. I should have been more careful, more considerate of your privacy. I'm not used to thinking about how my visibility affects others. The truth is, in my world, everyone wants something from me. Access, money, connections, status. Everyone except you. You saw me at my worst, injured, irritable, vulnerable, and treated me with honesty and kindness. Not because of who I am, but despite it. I understand if you want nothing more to do with me. But if you're willing, I'd like a chance to talk when I return. No restaurants, no public places, just us. Beck P.S. I've instructed my legal team to address the tabloid coverage. They have no right to invade your privacy. Zariah read the letter, twice conflicting emotions washing over her. Part of her wanted to tear it up and forget Beckett Cross had ever entered her life. But another part, a part she was trying hard to ignore, wanted to see him again. To explore the connection she couldn't deny existed between them. She tucked the letter into her purse without responding. For the next week, Zariah threw herself into work, picking up extra shifts to help pay for Maya's laptop. The tabloid story had mostly died down, though occasionally she'd catch someone looking at her curiously in the hospital corridors. Then, one night, as she was checking on a patient, she overheard a news report from the television in the room. Tech mogul Beckett Cross collapsed during a business meeting in Tokyo today. Sources say he was rushed to a local hospital with what appears to be complications from a recent injury. Zariah's heart stuttered. She quickly finished with her patient, then went to the break room to find a news channel. The report was brief. Beckett had collapsed during a presentation, possibly due to stress and overwork following his accident. His condition was stable, but he was being kept for observation. Without thinking, Zariah pulled out her phone and called the number on Diane's card. Ms. Foster speaking. It's Zariah Lane. I heard about Beck. Mr. Cross, is he okay? There was a pause, then Diane's voice softened. He's stable. The doctors say he pushed himself too hard too soon after his injuries. His body finally forced him to rest, but he'll be all right. Yes, Diane confirmed. He's being flown back to the States tomorrow. His personal physician will take over his care at home. Relief washed over Zariah. Thank you for telling me. He'll be glad you called, Diane said. He talks about you, you know, a lot. The comment caught Zariah off guard. I should go, I'm at work. Of course. Take care, Nurse Lane. After hanging up, Zariah sat for a moment, trying to sort through her feelings. Why had she called? Why did her heart race at the thought of Beckett being seriously ill? And why, despite all her reservations, did she find herself hoping he would contact her when he returned? 3 days later, Zariah received an unexpected text from an unknown number. Room 304 misses you, so do I. B. She stared at the message for a long time before finally typing back, "Heard you had a setback. Following doctor's orders this time?" His response was immediate. "Yes, ma'am. Strict. Bed rest, though it would be more bearable with company." Despite herself, Zariah smiled. "Subtle. Worth a try. Can I call you tomorrow?" She hesitated, then replied, "Okay." The next day, Zariah's phone rang during her lunch break. She answered on the second. "Ring, how are you feeling?" she asked without preamble. "Better," Beckett said, his voice warm. "Especially now." "Your ribs?" "Still sore, but healing. The doctors say I was lucky. If I'd pushed any harder, I might have done permanent damage." "You should have listened to your nurse," she said, unable to keep the concern from her voice. "I should have," he agreed. "I'm listening now, though. Complete rest for 2 weeks." "Good." There was a pause. Then Beckett asked, "Did you mean what you said at the restaurant? That whatever this is between us is a mistake?" Zariah sighed. "I don't know. Your world is so different from mine. Those reporters, the attention—" "I can't change who I am," he said quietly, "but I can promise to be more careful with your privacy." "It's not just that," she admitted. "I have responsibilities, my siblings, my job. I can't afford distractions." "Am I a distraction, Zariah?" The way he said her name made her heart flutter. "Yes," she answered honestly. "You are." "What if I told you I haven't been able to stop thinking about you since I left that hospital room? That for the first time in years, I've met someone who makes me feel like more than just my last name?" His words hung in the air between them, sincere and vulnerable. Before Zariah could respond, she heard someone calling her name, Nancy, looking for her to assist with an emergency. "I have to go," she said quickly. "Work." "I understand," Beckett replied. "But Zariah, this conversation isn't over." As she hung up and rushed to help with the emergency, Zariah couldn't shake the feeling that her life was about to change in ways she couldn't control. And despite all her caution, all her walls, a part of her was ready to let it happen. What she didn't know was that Beckett Cross had already made up his mind. He wasn't going to let her walk away again. Not without fighting for what they could be together. And Beckett Cross was a man used to getting what he wanted. 2 days after their phone call, a delivery arrived at the hospital for Zariah, a small potted orchid with delicate white blooms. The card read simply, "Something beautiful that requires care and patience like what's growing between us." "Beck." "Secret admirer?" Nancy teased, watching Zariah place the plant on the windowsill in the break room. "Not so secret anymore," Zariah replied, thinking of the tabloid photo that still circulated occasionally. You know," Nancy said carefully, "it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world to let yourself be happy, even if it's complicated." Zariah sighed. "It's not just complicated, it's impossible. He lives in a world of private jets and board meetings. I live in a world of double shifts and discount groceries. Love has overcome bigger obstacles," Nancy said with a shrug. "Who said anything about love?" Zariah asked, too quickly. Nancy just smiled knowingly. That weekend, Zariah drove to visit Maya at college, bringing the laptop she'd finally managed to purchase with her overtime pay. They sat in Maya's tiny dorm room, catching up over cheap. "Pizza, you look tired, Z," Maya observed. "Are you working too much again?" "Just the usual," Zariah assured her. "How are your classes?" Maya launched into stories about her design projects, her roommate drama, and the professor who kept hitting on the female students. Zariah listened attentively, grateful for the distraction. From her own confused feelings about Beckett, until Maya said, "So, were you going to tell me about your billionaire boyfriend? Or did I have to find out from TikTok like everyone else?" Zariah nearly choked on her pizza. "He's not my boyfriend, and how on earth is he on TikTok?" Maya rolled her eyes. "Everything is on TikTok. There's this whole thread about you guys, Nurse and the billionaire. People think it's super romantic. It's super invasive," Zariah muttered, and completely blown out of proportion. "We had dinner once, that's it." "That's not what the internet says," Maya teased. "According to my sources, he's completely smitten with you." "Your sources need to get a life," Zariah said, but she couldn't help the warmth that spread through her at the thought. "Seriously, though," Maya said, her expression softening, "are you okay?" With all the attention, I mean. Zariah sighed. It's strange, unwanted, but it's already dying down. She hesitated, then added, He's not what I expected, Maya. He's different when we're alone, more real. Maya studied her sister's face. Oh my God, you actually like him. I don't know what I feel, Zariah admitted, but it doesn't matter. We live in different worlds. Maybe he wants to be part of your world, Maya suggested. Have you given him the chance? The question followed Zariah home that evening. Had she been too quick to push Beckett away, too afraid to let someone pass the walls she'd built around? Her heart? Her phone buzzed with a text from Beckett. I know it's late, but I wanted to say goodnight. Hope you had a good day. Such a simple message, but it made her smile. Before she could overthink it, she replied, I visited my sister at college today. Apparently, we're trending on TikTok. His response came quickly. I'm sorry about that. My PR team is trying to redirect attention. It's okay, she thought it was cool. Her friends are impressed. There was a pause, then, and what about her big sister? Is she impressed? Zariah bit her lip, then typed, I'm cautiously intrigued. Intrigued enough to see me tomorrow? I'm finally cleared to drive. I could pick you up after your shift. Zariah hesitated, then made a decision. I get off at 7, but I choose where we go this time. Deal. The next evening, Zariah waited outside the hospital, nervous despite herself. When a sleek silver sports car pulled up, she almost didn't recognize Beckett behind the wheel. He wore jeans and a simple button-down shirt, still expensive looking, but far more casual than she'd ever seen him. You look different, she said as she got into the passenger seat. Good different or bad different? He asked, his eyes warm as they took in her appearance. She'd changed from her scrubs into jeans and a soft blue sweater. Just different, she replied. More like Beck than Beckett Cross, CEO, he smiled. That was the idea. He gestured to the road ahead. Where to? Take a left at the light, she directed. We're going to my place. Beckett raised an eyebrow but didn't comment. 20 minutes later, they arrived at Zariah's apartment building, a modest complex in a working-class neighborhood. She watched his face carefully as they walked up 3 flights of stairs, but his expression revealed only interest, not judgment. Home sweet home, she said, unlocking her door. The apartment was small but neat, a combined living room and kitchen, with 2 doors leading to what Beckett assumed were a bedroom and bathroom. Photos of Zariah with her siblings adorned the walls, along with a few nursing school certificates. It's not what you're used to, she said, suddenly self-conscious. It's exactly what I expected, he replied. It feels like you. And what does that mean? Practical, unpretentious, warm. He picked up a framed photo of a woman who looked like an older version of Zariah. Your mum? Zariah nodded. Taken about a year before she got sick. Beckett set the photo down carefully. Thank you for bringing me here. I know this isn't easy for you. I wanted you to see where I come from, she explained, moving to the kitchen. To understand my life. She opened the refrigerator. I hope you like pasta. It's about all I can cook reliably. I love pasta, he said, following her. Can I help? She looked at him skeptically. Can you cook? I can follow directions, he offered with a smile. To Zariah's surprise, they fell into an easy rhythm, preparing the simple meal together. Beckett rolled up his sleeves and chopped vegetables while she started the sauce. They talked about their days, about Maya's college adventures, about the book Beckett was reading during his enforced rest period. It felt normal, natural, as if they'd done this 100 times before. Over dinner at her small table, Zariah found herself opening up more than she had intended. After Mom died, there was no one else, she explained. Our dad left when Maya was a baby. I was in nursing school, but I had to take a semester off to sort out guardianship, finances, everything. My siblings were still in school. Zoe in high school, Jaden in middle school, and Maya was only 10. That's a lot of responsibility for a 22-year-old, Beckett said softly. I didn't have a choice, Zariah shrugged. They're my family. You had a choice, he corrected her. You chose to step up. Many wouldn't have. She looked at him curiously. What about your family? You never talk about them. A shadow crossed his face. Not much to tell. My mother died when I was young. My father, well, Crosstech was his real child. I was just the heir. That sounds lonely, Zariah said, echoing his words from their restaurant dinner. It was, he admitted. Still is sometimes. The company has thousands of employees who depend on me, but at the end of the day, he trailed off. You go home. To an empty house, she finished for him. Their eyes met across the table, a moment of perfect understanding passing between them. After dinner, they washed dishes side by side, their conversation turning lighter. Beckett told her about his disastrous first board meeting, where he'd accidentally spilled coffee on 3 executive laptops. Zariah shared stories about her most memorable patients. Later, they sat on her small couch, the distance between them gradually shrinking as the evening wore on. When Beckett's hand found hers, entwining their fingers together, Zariah didn't pull away. This is nice, he said quietly. Just being here with you. No cameras, no expectations. Is that really enough for you? She asked. This ordinary life? There's nothing ordinary about you, Zariah Lane, he replied, his voice low, and right now this feels more real than anything in my world. When he leaned in to kiss her, she met him halfway. The kiss was gentle at first, then deepened with a hunger that surprised them both. Zariah found herself melting into him, all her doubts temporarily silenced by the feeling of his arms around her, his heart beating against hers. When they finally broke apart, both slightly breathless, Beckett rested his forehead against hers. I've been wanting to do that since you lectured me about hospital protocols, he confessed. Zariah laughed softly. Even with the bruises and the hospital gown? Even. Then he assured her, you were the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen standing there telling me I wasn't special. I never said you weren't special, she corrected. Just that your money didn't make you more important than other patients. He kissed her again, briefly. And that's exactly why you're special to me. The moment was perfect, until Zariah's phone rang with her sister Zoe's ringtone. I should get this, she said apologetically. Beckett nodded, releasing her. Zoe, is everything okay? Zariah asked, immediately concerned by the late call. Not really. Zoe's voice was tight with stress. My landlord just gave me notice. They're selling the building, and I have 30 days to move out. I can't find anything I can afford, Z. Zariah closed her eyes briefly. Okay, don't panic. We'll figure something out. I hate asking, but could I maybe stay with you until I find a new place? Just for a little while? Zariah looked around her tiny apartment, then at Beckett, who was politely pretending not to listen. Of course you can. We'll make it work. After the call, she rejoined Beckett on the couch with a sigh. My sister Zoe needs a place to stay. Her building is being sold. I heard, he said. Is there anything I can do to help? No, she said firmly. This is family stuff. We'll manage. Beckett studied her face. You always take care of everyone else. Who takes care of you, Zariah? The question hit her with unexpected force. I don't need taking care of. Everyone does sometimes, he said gently. Before she could respond, his phone buzzed with an alert. Beckett checked it and frowned. What is it? She asked. Work, he said tersely. There's a situation with one of our overseas divisions. I'm sorry, but I need to take this. He stepped into the kitchen to make the call, his voice shifting into what Zariah now thought of as his CEO. Tone, authoritative, decisive. It was a stark reminder of who he was outside the bubble they'd created tonight. When he returned, his expression was apologetic. I hate to cut this short, but I need to go into the office. There's an emergency conference call with Tokyo in an hour. Of course, Zariah said, trying to hide her disappointment. I understand. He pulled her close for one more kiss. This evening meant everything to me, Zariah. Thank you for letting me into your world. After he left, Zariah stood in her quiet apartment, touching her lips where she could still feel his kiss. What was she doing? Getting involved with Beckett. Cross would only complicate her already complicated life. Yet she couldn't deny the connection between them, the way he made her feel seen and valued in a way no one had in years. The next morning, Zariah woke to another text from Beckett. Dinner. At my place tomorrow? I want to show you my world too. She hesitated, then replied, Okay, but I need to help Zoe move some things first. His response was immediate. I'll send a car for both of you. We can help her move, then have dinner. Before Zariah could protest, another text came through. Please let me do this, not because I'm Beckett Cross, but because I'm someone who cares about you. How could she argue with that? The following afternoon, a luxury SUV picked up Zariah and Zoe from the apartment. Zoe could barely contain her excitement. I can't believe we're going to Beckett Cross's house, she whispered as they were driven through increasingly upscale neighborhoods. Is it weird that I Googled him? His net worth is— Please don't tell me, Zariah interrupted. I'm trying not to think about that part. The car finally turned down a private drive, passing through security gates, and approached a modern mansion overlooking the city. It was smaller than Zariah had expected, but still far more luxurious than anywhere she'd ever been. Beckett was waiting for them at the door, dressed casually again in jeans and a sweater. He greeted Zariah with a quick kiss, then extended his hand to Zoe. It's great to finally meet you, he said warmly. Zariah talks about you all the time. Likewise, Zoe replied, her eyes wide as she took in the house. Though she's been pretty secretive about you. That's because there's nothing to tell, Zariah said quickly. Beckett raised an eyebrow. Nothing? She blushed, avoiding his gaze. So Zoe, Beckett said, tactfully changing the subject. Zariah mentioned you're looking for a new place? Yeah. My building's being sold to some developer, Zoe sighed. Everything in my price range is either tiny or in terrible neighborhoods. Actually, Beckett said carefully, I might know of something. A friend of mine owns some properties downtown, including a building with affordable units for young professionals. They're nice apartments, good security, reasonable rent. Zariah frowned. Beck, it's just information, he assured her. No strings attached. I can give you his contact information, Zoe, if you're interested. That would be amazing, Zoe said, enthusiastically. Zariah remained skeptical, but she held her tongue. She knew Beckett was trying to help, and Zoe did need a place to live. After helping Zoe load some of her belongings into a storage unit Beckett had arranged, they returned to his house for dinner. Zoe excused herself to explore the garden. Though Zariah suspected she was just giving them privacy, You didn't have to do all this, Zariah said once they were alone in his kitchen. I wanted to, Beckett replied simply. Is it so hard to let someone help you for once? Yes, she admitted. I've been handling things on my own for so long. I understand independence, he said, moving closer to her. But there's a difference between being independent and being alone. His words struck a chord. For years, Zariah had prided herself on her self-sufficiency, on never needing anyone. But standing here in Beckett's kitchen, feeling his gentle gaze on her, she wondered if she'd been confusing strength with isolation. This is all happening so fast, she whispered. I know, he agreed, taking her hands in his. But some things you just know. From the moment you walked into that hospital room and treated me like any other patient, I knew you were special. Because I didn't fawn over you? She asked with a small smile. Because you saw me, he said seriously. Not the name, not the money, just me. As he leaned in to kiss her, Zariah felt the last of her resistance melting away. Maybe this was crazy. Maybe their worlds were too different. But in this moment, none of that seemed to matter. Their kiss was interrupted by the sound of the front door opening and a woman's voice calling out, Beckett, darling, are you home? They sprang apart as a stunning blonde in a designer dress strode into the kitchen, stopping short at the sight of them. Oh, she said coolly. I didn't realize you had company. Beckett's expression hardened. Victoria, what are you doing here? The board meeting was moved up to tomorrow morning. I thought we should go over our strategy tonight. Her eyes flicked dismissively over Zariah. But I see you're busy with your nurse. The way she said nurse made it sound like a dirty word. This is Zariah Lane, Beckett said firmly. Zariah, this is Victoria Chambers, Crosstech's legal counsel. And his ex-fiancee, Victoria added with a cold smile. Though that last part seems to be constantly changing status, Zariah felt as if the floor had dropped out from under her. Ex-fiancee? Ancient history, Beckett said quickly. Victoria, now isn't a good time. Clearly, Victoria replied, but the Maxwell merger won't wait, darling. It's only the biggest deal of the year. She turned to Zariah with false sweetness. I'm sure you understand. Business always comes first in Beckett's world. Before either of them could respond, Zoe returned from the garden. This place is amazing. The view from the... She stopped, sensing the tension. Did I interrupt something? No, Zariah said, her voice tight. In fact, we were just leaving. Zariah, wait, Beckett started. You didn't mention an ex-fiancee, she said quietly. Because it's not relevant, he insisted. Victoria and I were engaged briefly 3 years ago. It was a business arrangement more than anything else. Her father is on the board. A business arrangement? Victoria laughed bitterly. Is that what we're calling it now? That's enough, Beckett said sharply. Victoria, please wait in the study. I'll be with you shortly. With a triumphant smirk, Victoria sauntered out of the kitchen. Zariah, please, Beckett said once they were alone. Don't let her get between us. What happened with Victoria was a mistake, one I realized before we actually got married. You should have told me, Zariah said, hurt evident in her voice. Should have, he admitted. I'm sorry, there just hasn't been the right moment to bring up past relationships. Right, Zariah said, taking a step back. Because we barely know each other, do we? A few days in a hospital room, one dinner, and suddenly I'm letting myself believe this could work. It can work, Beckett insisted, reaching for her. I care about you, Zariah, more than I've cared about anyone in a long time. But Victoria was right about one thing, Zariah said sadly. Business always comes first in your world, and I'll never fit into that world. You don't have to fit into it, he argued. We can create our own world. Zoe cleared her throat awkwardly. Should I wait in the car? Yes, Zariah said firmly. We're leaving. Please don't go like this, Beckett pleaded. Let me explain everything. For a moment, Zariah wavered, the genuine pain in his eyes almost changing her mind. But then she thought of Victoria's perfectly manicured hands, her designer dress, the casual way she'd walked into Beckett's home. That was his real world. Board meetings and mergers and women who knew which fork to use at fancy dinners. I think we both need some space to think, she said finally. You have a board meeting to prepare for, and I have a real life to get back to. Without waiting for his response, she took Zoe's arm and walked out, leaving Beckett standing in his perfect kitchen, looking more lost than a billionaire had any right to be. On the drive back to her apartment, Zariah stared silently out the window, ignoring Zoe's concerned glances. He really likes you, you know, Zoe said finally. I could see it in the way he looks at you. It doesn't matter, Zariah replied. We're from different planets. Maybe that's what makes it special, Zoe suggested. He could have anyone, but he wants you, Zariah sighed, until the novelty wears off. Then he'll go back to women like Victoria, women who understand his world. Or maybe he's tired of that world, Zoe countered. Maybe he wants something real. The words echoed in Zariah's mind as they arrived at her apartment. Was what she felt for Beckett real, or was it just the fantasy of being wanted by someone? Like him, handsome, wealthy, powerful? No, she realized as she lay in bed that night unable to sleep. What drew her to Beckett wasn't his money or his status. It was the vulnerability in his eyes when he talked about his lonely childhood, the genuine interest he showed in her siblings' lives, the way he'd rolled up his sleeves and washed dishes in her tiny kitchen without complaint. But was that enough to bridge the gap between their worlds? Her phone buzzed with a text from Beckett. I'm sorry about tonight. Victoria means nothing to me. You mean everything. Please give me a chance to prove it. Zariah read the message 3 times without responding. Her heart told her to give him that chance. But her mind warned her that loving Beckett Cross would mean opening herself up to a world of scrutiny and judgment she'd never wanted. What she didn't know was that at that very moment, Beckett was making a decision that would change both their lives forever. A decision that would either bring them together or tear them apart for good. 3 days passed without Zariah responding to Beckett's messages. She threw herself into work, picking up extra shifts and staying late to avoid going home to an empty apartment that now felt lonelier than ever. You look terrible, Nancy commented bluntly as they changed shifts. Are you sleeping at all? I'm fine, Zariah replied automatically. Honey, I've known you for 5 years. You're not fine, Nancy's voice softened. Is this about Mr. Billionaire? Zariah sighed, too tired to deny it. I met his ex-fiancee. She was everything I'm not. And that's a problem, because she fits into his world. I don't. Nancy shook her head. From what I saw when he was here, that man doesn't want someone who fits into his world. He wants someone who sees the real him. It's not that simple, Zariah argued. His life is board meetings and galas and private jets. Mine is double shifts and budget grocery shopping. Love is always simple, Nancy countered. It's people who make it complicated. Before Zariah could respond, Dr. Patel approached them with an odd expression on her face. Nurse Lane, could I see you in my office? Zariah followed her, mentally reviewing her recent shifts for any mistakes or complaints. But nothing prepared her for what waited in Dr. Patel's office. On the desk sat a thick envelope with the Crosstech logo. Dr. Patel gestured for her to sit down. This arrived this morning, she explained. From Beckett Cross himself. Zariah's heart raced. What is it? A donation, Dr. Patel said, her voice filled with barely contained excitement. The largest single donation in the hospital's history. But it comes with specific terms. What kind of terms? Dr. Patel opened the envelope and handed Zariah a letter on heavy Crosstech stationery. To the Board of Directors of Metro General Hospital, I am pleased to announce a donation of $10 million to establish the Sarah Lane Memorial Pediatric Wing, named in honor of Nurse Zariah Lane's mother. This donation is made with the following conditions. Construction will begin within 6 months and will include state-of-the-art facilities, family accommodation rooms, and upgraded staff areas. Current staff will be retained with improved benefits and working conditions. A scholarship program will be established for nursing students who demonstrate the same dedication and compassion as Nurse Lane. I make this donation not as CEO of Crosstech, but as a former patient whose life was changed by the care he received, particularly from one nurse who saw the person behind the name. Sincerely, Beckett Cross. Zariah's hands trembled as she read. Her mother's name, a pediatric wing, a scholarship program. Did you know about this? Dr. Patel asked gently. No, Zariah whispered. I had no idea. Well, the board is ecstatic, Dr. Patel continued. We've been trying to fund a new pediatric wing for years, and I have to say, it's an incredibly thoughtful donation. Most donors want their own names on buildings. Zariah didn't know what to feel, touched by the tribute to her mother, overwhelmed by the gesture but also uneasy. Was this Beckett's way of buying her forgiveness, of using his wealth to impress her? There's something else, Dr. Patel added, handing her a smaller envelope. This came separately, marked personal. Zariah took it with hesitation. Inside was a handwritten note. Zariah, this isn't a grand gesture to win you back. It's something I've been planning since my first day in your care, long before I knew how important you would become to me. Your mother's legacy lives in everything you do, in the compassion you show your patients, in the sacrifices you make for your siblings, in the strength you bring to each day. I understand if you still need space. I respect your decision, whatever it may be. But please know that this donation stands regardless of what happens between us. Your mother deserves to be remembered, and Metro General deserves the best pediatric wing possible. If you're willing to talk, I'll be at the cafe across from the hospital at 7 p.m. tonight. Zariah folded the note carefully, her emotions too tangled to sort through. Thank you, she said to Dr. Patel, standing up. I need some time to process this. The rest of her shift passed in a blur. Every time she thought about Beckett's letter, tears threatened. Not because of the money, impressive as $10 million was, but because he had chosen to honor her mother, to create a legacy that would help countless families facing the same struggles hers had. It wasn't the gesture of someone trying to buy affection. It was the action of someone who had listened, who had understood what truly mattered to her. By the end of her shift, Zariah had made her decision. She changed out of her scrubs, applied a fresh coat of lip balm, and walked across the street to the cafe. Beckett was already there, sitting at a corner table with 2 coffees. He looked different, tired, with the beginnings of stubble on his jaw and his usually perfect hair slightly rumpled. When he saw her, he stood up so quickly he nearly knocked over his chair. "You came," he said, relief washing over his face. "I got your letter," Zariah replied, sitting down across from him. "Both of them." "I meant what I said," he told her earnestly. "The donation stands no matter what, no strings attached." "Why my mother's name?" she asked, the question that had been burning in her mind all day. Beckett's expression softened. "Because without her, there would be no you, and you changed everything for me." The simplicity and sincerity of his answer touched her deeply. "It's too much money," she said weakly. "It's exactly the right amount," he countered. "And it's not about the money, Zariah. It's about doing something meaningful with resources I've been fortunate enough to have." She studied his face, noticing the dark circles under his eyes. "You look tired." "I haven't been sleeping well," he admitted. "Turns out my bed feels empty without a certain nurse lecturing me about taking care of myself." Despite everything, Zariah smiled. "What happened with Victoria? And the board meeting?" Beckett's expression turned serious. "That's actually what I wanted to talk to you about. A lot has changed in the past 3 days." "What do you mean?" He took a deep breath. "I've stepped down as CEO of Crosstech." Zariah stared at him in shock. "You what? Why?" "I'm still on the board and remain the majority shareholder," he explained. "But I've appointed a new chief executive, someone who's been with the company for years and shares my vision." "But why would you do that?" Zariah asked, struggling to comprehend. "Crosstech is your life." "That's just it," Beckett said, reaching across the table to take her hand. "For too long it has been my entire life. My father's legacy became my identity. But these past few weeks, getting to know you, seeing how you live for the people you love, not just for work, it made me realize I've been missing so much." "So you just quit?" Zariah was still trying to process the enormity of his decision. "I took a step back," he corrected, "to make room for other priorities." His eyes met hers. "To make room for the possibility of us." Zariah felt tears forming. "Beck, I never wanted you to give up your company for me." "I didn't give it up," he said gently. "I just changed my relationship with it, and I did it for myself as much as for you. For the first time in my life, I'm choosing my own path, not following the one laid out for me." His words resonated deeply with Zariah, who had spent years doing what needed to be done, putting her own dreams on hold for her family's needs. "What will you do now?" she asked. A smile touched his lips. "That's the exciting part. I've started a foundation focused on healthcare access for underserved communities. Your mother's wing is just the beginning." "A foundation," he nodded. "I have the resources to make a difference. You showed me what really matters: people, connection, care. I want to use what I have to support that." As he spoke, Zariah saw something in his eyes she hadn't noticed before: a clarity, a purpose that went beyond business success. "And there's something else," he added, looking slightly nervous. "I've applied to volunteer at Metro General, just a few hours a week in the beginning." "You want to volunteer at the hospital?" Zariah couldn't hide her surprise. "Is that so hard to believe?" he asked with a small smile. "I was inspired by a certain nurse who showed me what real care looks like." Zariah shook her head in wonder. "I are full of surprises, Beckett Cross. Just trying to be worthy of you," he said simply. The honesty in his voice broke through the last of Zariah's defenses. This wasn't the arrogant CEO she'd first met, nor was it a man trying to impress her with grand gestures. This was someone who had looked at his life and made difficult choices to create room for love. "I've missed you," she admitted softly. His hand tightened around hers. "I've missed you too. More than I thought possible." "I'm still scared," she confessed. "Our worlds are so different." "They don't have to be," he said. "We can build a new world together, one that has room for both." The nurse and the former CEO. His eyes held hers. "If that's what you want." "What I want," Zariah said slowly, "is someone who sees me for who I really am, not just another responsibility to take care of, not a project or a novelty, but a partner." "That's exactly what I..." Want to, Beckett replied. Someone who doesn't care about my name or my bank account. Someone who calls me out when I'm being stubborn. Someone who reminds me what matters. He leaned forward. I want you, Zariah Lane. Just as you are. His words broke something open inside her, a door she'd kept locked since taking on the weight of her family's needs. For years, she'd been the strong one, the responsible one, the one who took care of everyone else. The idea of letting someone care for her, partner with her, was both terrifying and exhilarating. I need to take things slow, she said finally. I can't just dive into this without being sure. I understand, Beckett said, disappointment flashing briefly in his eyes before he masked it. I'll wait, however long it takes. But, she continued, squeezing his hand, I'm willing to try, to see where this goes. His face lit up with such hope that Zariah couldn't help but smile in return. For the first time in years, she was choosing something for herself, something that scared her, yes, but also something that made her heart race with possibility. The following weeks were a delicate dance of getting to know each other outside the confines of a hospital room or the shadow of their different backgrounds. Beckett kept his word about taking things slowly, never pushing for more than Zariah was ready to give. He started his volunteer work at the hospital, donning the same blue vest worn by all volunteers and taking his assignment with the same seriousness he'd once given to multi-million-dollar deals. The staff was stunned at first to see Beckett cross wheeling patients to physical therapy or delivering flowers to rooms, but his genuine commitment soon won them over. Zariah watched from a distance, at first, not wanting to interfere with his integration into the hospital community. But she couldn't help noticing how naturally he connected with patients, especially the children. The man who had once commanded boardrooms now sat patiently reading stories to kids in the pediatric ward, never checking his watch or appearing. Hurried. 3 months after his donation announcement, the groundbreaking ceremony for the Sarah Lane Memorial Pediatric Wing took place. Zariah stood with her siblings as Beckett gave a brief speech, his eyes finding hers frequently, as he spoke about the importance of compassionate care. Afterward, as the crowd dispersed, he approached her family. What did you think? He asked, uncharacteristically nervous. It was perfect, Zariah assured him, taking his hand. Over the past months, such gestures had become natural between them, their physical connection growing alongside their emotional one. Mom would have loved it, Zoe added, wiping away a tear. She had moved into one of the apartments Beckett's friend owned, though Zariah had insisted she pay the full rent herself. I have something for all of you, Beckett said, reaching into his jacket pocket. He pulled out 4 small boxes. I hope you'll accept these. Inside each box was a delicate silver key charm on a chain. Engraved on each was a single word, family. When the wing opens, Beckett explained, these will serve as permanent passes. You can visit any time, no matter the hour. I wanted you all to be part of your mother's legacy. Maya threw her arms around him, while Jaden shook his hand with uncharacteristic emotion. Zoe gave him a knowing smile, having become his unofficial ally in winning over her older sister. Zariah, touched beyond words, could only squeeze his hand tighter. Later that evening, as they walked through the hospital grounds, Beckett stopped suddenly. I almost forgot to show you something, he said, leading her back toward the main building. Where are we going? Zariah asked. You'll see. He guided her through familiar corridors until they reached room 304, the room where they'd first met. It was empty now, awaiting the next patient. Why are we here? She asked, confused. Because this is where I found you, Beckett said softly. Or maybe where you found me. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small worn card, his patient ID bracelet from his stay. I kept this to remind me of the moment everything changed. Zariah felt tears forming. You're getting sentimental in your old age, Mr. Cross. Must be the influence of a certain nurse, he replied with a smile. Then his expression grew serious. Zariah, these past few months have been the happiest of my life. Not because I've stepped away from Crosstech or started the foundation, but because I've had you by my side. Her heart began to race. Beck, let me finish, he said gently. I know we agreed to take things slowly, and I've respected that. I'll continue to respect whatever pace you need, but I want you to know that for me, there's no doubt. I love you, Zariah Lane. I love your strength, your compassion, your unwavering loyalty to your family. I love the way you see through pretense to what really matters. Tears were flowing freely down Zariah's face now. I love you too, she whispered, the words she'd been holding back for weeks finally breaking free. I've been so afraid of what it means, of how complicated it could be. Love doesn't have to be complicated, he interrupted, echoing Nancy's words from weeks before. It's just about seeing someone, really seeing them, and choosing them every day. He took her hands in his. I'm not asking for any decisions right now. I just wanted you to know where I stand. Whatever comes next, whatever pace we take, I'm all in. Zariah looked at him, really looked at him. Not Beckett Cross the billionaire, but Beck, the man who had let her see his vulnerabilities, who had made space in his life for what mattered to her, who had shown up consistently even when it wasn't easy. I'm all in too, she said, and the words felt like freedom. 1 month later, Zariah arrived for her shift to find the hospital buzzing with excitement. The construction on the new wing was progressing ahead of schedule, and the first phase was nearly complete. As she changed into her scrubs, Nancy approached with a mysterious smile. You've got a special assignment today. What kind of assignment? Zariah asked suspiciously. Room 304 needs attention, Nancy replied cryptically. Dr. Patel's orders. Confused but curious, Zariah made her way to room 304. It had been empty the day before, waiting for new admissions. She pushed open the door to find the room transformed. Fresh flowers sat on the windowsill. The harsh overhead lights had been dimmed in favor of softer lamps, and in the center of the room stood Beckett, dressed not in his usual volunteer vest, but in hospital scrubs, holding a clipboard and wearing a nervous smile. What is this? Zariah asked, taking in the scene. Beckett set down the clipboard and approached her slowly. This is where we began. I thought it was fitting for what I hope will be a new beginning. He took her hands in his. 6 months ago, I came into this hospital a different man, focused only on business, isolated in my success, never truly connecting with anyone. Then a stubborn, beautiful nurse refused to give me special treatment, and everything changed. Zariah felt her heart racing as he continued. You saw me, Zariah. Not the name, not the wealth, but the person underneath it all. You challenged me to be better, to want more than what I thought I deserved. He reached into the pocket of his scrubs and pulled out a small velvet box. And now I can't imagine my life without you in it. As he dropped to one knee, Zariah's hand flew to her mouth. I'm not asking you to leave your world for mine, he said, his voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes. I'm asking if we can build a new world together, one where I volunteer at the hospital you love, where your siblings have the support they need to chase their dreams, where we both do work that matters to us. He opened the box to reveal a ring, elegant, but not ostentatious, with a simple diamond flanked by smaller sapphires the color of her scrubs. Zariah Lane, will you marry me? Not because I'm Beckett Cross, but because I'm the man who loves you more than anything in this world. Tears streamed down Zariah's face as she looked at the man kneeling before her, the billionaire in hospital, scrubs, humbling himself for love. Yes, she whispered, then louder. Yes. As he slipped the ring onto her finger and rose to his feet, Zariah threw her arms around his neck. Their kiss was a promise of understanding, of partnership, of a love, built on seeing each other for who they truly were. When they finally pulled apart, Beckett rested his forehead against hers. I've built empires, he said softly, echoing the words from their first meeting, but I'd give them all up just to be seen by you again. And in that moment, in room 304, where their story began, Zariah knew that what they had found together was rarer and more precious than any fortune. They had found home in each other's hearts. As news of their engagement spread through the hospital, congratulations poured in from staff and patients alike. Dr. Patel offered them the hospital chapel for the ceremony, which Zariah accepted with tears in her eyes. Her siblings immediately began planning their roles in the wedding, with Maya insisting on designing Zariah's dress. That evening, as they walked hand in hand through the construction site of what would soon be the Sarah Lane Memorial Pediatric Wing, Beckett stopped to show Zariah the plans for a special room, a family consultation space with her mother's portrait on the wall. "Do you think she would have approved?" he asked, a rare moment of uncertainty in his voice. "Of me? Of us?" Zariah looked at the man beside her, the man who had changed his entire life to make room for love, who had honored her mother's memory, who had seen her when no one else did. "She would have loved you," Zariah said with absolute certainty, "because you finally saw me, not as someone to take care of, not as a responsibility, but as a partner to build a life with." Beckett's arms encircled her waist as he pulled her close. "When you finally see me," he murmured against her hair, "that's when I feel most alive." And as the sun set over the hospital where their unlikely love story had begun, Zariah knew that sometimes the greatest journeys start in the most unexpected places, like room 304, where a nurse and a billionaire had found something priceless in each other's eyes: recognition, understanding, and a love that finally let them both be seen.